Hey there, my name is Tripp. I'm the head of formation at Dwell, and it's a joy to be with you today. I want to take just a minute and introduce you now to the player inside the Dwell app. You may be thinking, why would they take time to talk about the player, a piece of software? Well, we think it's super important and helpful to show you the ways in which these software features are actually prayerfully designed to get out of the way so you can get to the business at hand, dwelling with God through His Word. And so let's dive into the player, and I want to show you how we've done just that. In the Dwell app, any piece of content you click on will bring up the player. Let's start here with this wonderful passage from Romans chapter 8. I'll pause it. And here you have the player. And I think the simplest way to walk through this is just top to bottom, highlight on the screen the key features that you'll encounter in the player. And so first, here in the top left, you see this caret. If you click that, it's a simple way to minimize the player. If you want to go and scroll around in the app and then come back to it, it lives here now at the bottom of the screen, and you can touch it once more, and then it comes back up to the full size. Here in the other corner, in the top right, you have this ellipses, and if you click here, you'll see a few features that are specific to that piece of content. So, for All Things Work for Good, you can add it to your favorites, add it to a queue to listen to later, share it with a friend, add to downloads for offline listening, add to a playlist, such as a custom playlist that you've created, or you can then see your full queue and history. The other thing I'd like to highlight is here at the very top, you have the ability to toggle between the two main modes of Dwell, listen and read. And while listen really is the heart of the Dwell experience, listening to Scripture, there may be other times, specific situations, where it's important for you to be able to read. And all you have to do is swipe to the right or simply click where it says read, and now you'll see this passage comes up in a read format. Here, let me point a few things out. If you want to move beyond this single verse and jump into the full passage to see the verse in context, simply click here, see all of Romans 8. Also down here at the bottom, you have a few read-specific settings. If I click here, you'll see I can change the version that I'm listening to in Dwell. Here again, we have 3 additional read settings. This books icon brings up the books of the Bible. If you want to jump to another part of Scripture and jump into that book, you can do so here. This middle icon is the styles icon, where you then have the ability to change light or dark mode, choose from a variety of fonts. I would here simply note, in addition to a few beautifully curated fonts, we have this dyslexia font, which is especially helpful if you or someone you know suffers from dyslexia. We then have this slider where you can adjust the font size for reading, and then you can adjust the spacing between the lines as well. So, lastly, you have the advanced reading functions. Here again, you can hide verse numbers, hide chapter headings, or use red letters as you read. So all of that is specific to read when you're reading in Dwell. Yet to go back to the listening player, simply again swipe now to the left or click where it says listen, and we're back in the listening player. Here again, a few things to highlight. Front and center, you see the artwork here. Pieces of content in Dwell have this beautiful artwork that you can enjoy, and you'll notice here on my screen, the background has this golden brown hue to it. And that's a setting that I'll show you in just a moment that we call dynamic background, which is a way that the background pulls from the colors of the artwork to create a more immersive experience as you look at the Dwell app. Let me highlight this right here. Underneath the title for the content, All Things Work for Good, you see the reference, Romans 8:28. If I click in here, that's the way you can jump to a different part of Scripture, either somewhere else in Romans or scroll up and down to jump to a different book. Easy way, while you're listening, to go and explore other parts of the Scriptures. Here to the right, you see a button that helps you share or cast your content to different speakers. If you have different speakers in the house that you would like to use, simply select it from this list, and you can then listen there. This slider allows you to jump ahead in a passage, which is especially helpful for a longer listen, say 10, 15, 20 minutes. If you want to jump ahead to a certain portion, you can do so there. Then, of course, you have play and the ability to skip forward or backward by verse. And then these are two of the most helpful buttons here in the middle, where you can choose your voice and version. We have a full in-depth video on voice and version, and so I won't dive too deeply here, other than to say this is the heart of Dwell, where you can encounter and find the perfect voice and translation that works for you. So you select that. We have Amber here reading the CSB, and then here to the right of that, you can choose your music or sounds as a way to customize the listening experience. Lastly, as we wrap up, I want to highlight these 4 buttons on the bottom. They're super helpful. On the bottom left, we have a simple share button, a great way to send to a friend or family member whatever you're listening to in Dwell. The heart is a way to add this passage to your favorites, kind of a shortcut to jump straight into the favorites. Here on the bottom right is our read-along toggle, which is what we sometimes call our karaoke Bible, which means if you turn this on, whatever you're listening to, the on-screen text will move as the voice moves as well. You don't have to touch it. It's a way to simply add this another immersive layer, a way to, with multiple senses, engage the scriptures in a new way. Lastly, this slider here, this third from the left icon, is where all of your options live. This is kind of the master option menu, and it's really important. Again, here at the top, where you saw the shortcuts on the player, you can again here choose your voice and choose your music. Here you have a volume slider, which again may seem simple, but this is a thoughtful feature that helps you get your music and your voice just right. So you have individual sliders for the voices and the music, as well as a master slider. Here, the playback speed, you can increase the speed, how fast the passage is read to you. And then these 3 features, sleep timer, repeat, and reflect, all 3 of these have their own in-depth video as well. So if you want to learn more, I'd encourage you to go and watch those videos, simply to say, these are all ways for you to customize the listening experience, to create prayerful and meaningful encounters with God through Scripture. And you can toggle all of those on or off here. We have the chime. A chime is also a new but really exciting feature we've added in recent months, where you are able to sound a chime, as you see here, between chapters, playlist tracks, or items in your queue. This one is especially helpful for me. I often listen on Dwell to the daily readings from my church tradition, and there's several passages every day, and sometimes those might run together, and then a little simple chime helps you know when one ends and another begins. As I mentioned at the beginning, the dynamic background, here you can toggle it on or off. If I turn it off and close this menu, you'll see our background has now removed that dynamic gradient and is just this tan color. If I go back in and turn it back on, it'll return. And then lastly, you have the read-along text size, which previews here in the menu for you. You can simply slide this up and down as a way to adjust the size of read-along to your preference. So that is the Dwell player. I hope this was a helpful video for you. I hope you explore the Dwell player and try it out yourself and see the ways in which you can customize your Dwell listening experience just for you. If you have any questions about anything I've mentioned today, shoot us an email at info@dwellapp.io, and we'd love to follow up with you there. May God bless you, and may the word of Christ now dwell in you richly.